Yo, what's going on everyone? Hope you're having a fantastic day, and I'm really excited to share part one of this two-part video. One thing that I love about making these YouTube videos is being able to show behind the scenes of all these places that I've worked at, or friends of mine as they cook, or at festivals and things of that nature. But the one thing that I feel like I haven't done is do stuff for my own pop-ups. And the main reason for that is because it's so difficult to try to not just cook in my backyard and make sure everything's perfect, but to really do a lot of work and try to be super efficient while trying to make sure everything is in frame. I've tried doing this so many times before, and it just never worked out. So this last pop that I did, I just said, you know what, this is gonna be the one that I'm going to record as much as I possibly can to show you guys what this is all about. I think one of the biggest things that you can do when you're setting up for a pop-up, or if you're working in a restaurant or anything like that, is really scheduling things out. For the most part, everyone has their idea of, they know like how long a cook should be, they have their kind of cook schedule, but in terms of like prep schedule, setting up days that you need to have and need to make sure that these certain things get done is something that I feel like is a little bit lacking. So part one of this video is going to be me sharing with you guys how I kind of prep for this specific pop-up. I think that in itself is a super valuable skill when you're trying to feed a lot of people, especially for pop-ups when you're considering that like you're not gonna be in the same place, you might be in a new place you've never been before, you're not 100% exactly what the setup will look like the day of, even though you've walked through the space. So all these little details have to go into planning things out. So with that being said, welcome to Hard Knocks of KNOX Ave. All right, so before we create a schedule, the very first thing that we really have to think about is, what are we gonna be serving that day? Because depending on what you're serving that day really dictates what your schedule, what your week is gonna look like. If you're doing a bunch of, smaller, shorter cooks, then, maybe it'll be closer to, the day that you're serving it. If you're doing things that take longer and take more prep, you obviously need to plan things out. Now that we know what things that we're actually gonna be cooking, we can really start to build our schedule based off of how much work each thing requires. The also nice thing about the way that I do pop-ups is I usually do collabs. So I was working with my friends from Moms, so they did all the sides and desserts and things of that nature. So I really only needed to focus on, the proteins that we're gonna be, smoking. So that's a huge help. So shout out to Moms for all your guys' help during my pop-ups. This is the first time that I was doing sausage. So, I wanted to do sausage because, I think most people think about these two things as like barbecue items, as well as like pulled pork and things like that. But, I think sausage in Chicago is something that's mainly seen as something that you slap in a bun. But I really wanted to do this one and put it in like a higher tier as much as people think about these two things. I really wanted to do it right, and so as I tried to plan out how I wanted to do this, a lot of it was really built around sausage. The thing that is the most time consuming in terms of prep is definitely the sausage. So that's a thing that we have to consider and how it affects these other two proteins. So as I think about sausage, well, in order to make sausage, we have to get our scraps from our brisket. So for our brisket, our first day is gonna be our trim. As we do all this prep, we also wanna make sure that we can try to do as much as possible during a day to be efficient, but not to overwork ourselves and feel like one day is just so ridiculous with the amount of work that we're doing. If we're doing the trim right here, that's the same day that I'm putting my sausage on cure. And people will say, well, aren't you trimming super early? And I think a lot of people think that you have to trim, season, and throw the brisket on the same day. You don't have to do that, guys. As long as you can properly store and cover your briskets and things like that, trim as early as you possibly can. Obviously, you can't do it like a week and a half to 2 weeks ahead of time, but a couple days is not gonna kill it. So this is the one thing that I feel like doing ahead of time is really gonna allow you to relax. Even though I feel like I can trim briskets pretty quickly, I don't really want to do it the day before a cook. So because of that, I'm not really gonna be dealing with briskets for a while. So that's kind of it for right now. The next day is gonna be stuffing. Now you may ask, do I have to do these two things on separate days? Honestly, no. I've worked at places and I've also been to places where they'll just have all the trim, they'll put all the seasonings in, they'll grind it all up and stuff it that same day. They might air dry it for a day in the casing itself. But I find that this method right here, and this is really based off of my experience of working at Leroy and Lewis and working with Evan and Brad really closely. So this sausage process right here is heavily influenced by Brad or Chud's Barbecue. Shout out Brad, thank you for your help for this because this was hugely helpful. And even though you don't have to do these on separate days and you could probably do all of it and even cook it on the same day, I personally find that doing this cure, stuffing it, allow the casings to dry out, just the product at the end of the day is so much better. And if I'm only doing a pop-up for a day, I would like for it to be as good as possible. So on day one, we got the trim, we got the cure. So that first day, I'm not doing anything with ribs. On the second day, again, I'm not doing anything with ribs. I'm also not doing anything with brisket. It's just purely stuffing. And the other reason why I wanted this to be on its own instead of having to do other things on the same day is because I haven't stuffed sausage in a while, and I was dealing with a new stuffer and a new grinder. And so I wanted a day where I could really just kind of practice with those two new pieces of equipment and kind of hone my skills using that. The next day is gonna be our cold smoke. So the other factor that went into making sure I plan all this right is because where I live, where I'm cooking the food, where we're gonna be serving the food at the end of the week, we're all three different locations. I live in the burbs, my smoker is down south somewhere, and then the place that we're serving the food was somewhere in the middle. And my point in saying that is because when I went there to cold smoke this sausage was also the same day that I wanted to do ribs as well. So the ribs and the sausage were cooked on the same day. Now, you might be asking like, well, why are you cooking ribs so early? Aren't they gonna be bad? I would say in the way that most people cook them in like the Central Texas style with cooking the spare ribs overnight, yes, they would go bad if I did it super early. But because I knew I didn't want to have a brisket cook, do ribs right after before I went into the actual day of us serving the food, this is the killer for me. I just choose not to do this anymore. You know, in my next video, when I kind of go through the entire process of my entire week itself, I'll explain my cooking process for the ribs. And then at the very end, later on, that's when we're cooking the brisket. So this is kind of how my brain works once I know what's on the menu. Now you can really figure out how can I be efficient with my time so I don't have to do one day a week I'm doing trim and then cure stuffing and I'm cooking and I'm cooking and I'm cooking. That already is a full week, and we can't do that if we want to be sustainable and have this be an enjoyable experience for us as cooks. Okay, now that we have an idea of, you know, how many days we have to deal with, you know, brisket, ribs, and sausage, we can start filling it into our schedule. You know, this is something that I've always done. It starts from, you know, the very end of it when you're serving the food and kind of works backwards. So Sunday. So this day, this is game day. This is a day where we just want to have it be nice and relaxed. We got a shower in, we had our coffee, we just slowly prep and just get ready to serve people our food. Similar to where, you know, when we're prepping for a football game, we have to do all that work and plan everything accordingly. So by the time we get to game day, we've installed everything, we've taken care of the work. All we have to do is just show up and play the game. The day before game day, Saturday, that's gonna be our brisket cook. So the brisket cook, pretty self-explanatory, but again, this is something that I just wanna have it be super easy where all I have to worry about is just cooking briskets that day, right? That's it. Definitely don't want to be cold smoking sausage for a couple hours before having to get into this long cook. This is our quote unquote off day. Now, this does not mean I'm not doing anything to prep during these 2 days. But like I said, if we do a lot of stuff in the beginning of the week and we know that we've got a big cook ahead of us and we got a day where we're going to be serving food, I like having these 2 days where it's a little bit more hands off. It's a little bit time for you to relax and catch your breath, get a good night of sleep before we have a long cook, and just kind of mentally prepare ourselves for what we already did and what we're gonna get into the rest of the week. A day like this could be a day where, you know, you can do things easier at home, or for example, if like you're missing certain things and now you have the freedom to leave somewhere to pick things up, or you need more wood and you can pick up that day, things like that. So those 2 days are really for you to play catch up if you need it, or just to relax and just enjoy it because you deserved it after doing a lot of work up front. These 3 days are kind of like our, you know, more intensive days. Wednesday specific for me is gonna be the longest day. I got sausage I need to cold smoke. We got ribs we have to cook, but specifically on this day, we're also picking up the ribs. If you're getting them from a meat purveyor itself, you have to know when things are available, when you can pick them up. And Wednesday was the day closest to our cook day that I can pick them up. I didn't want to pick them up too early because the other thing was that I didn't have enough space to keep all this meat. I think there's a lot of people who think about pop-ups and things like that. They only think about how much meat can I get on the smoker, but they don't take into account, and I didn't when I first started off too, was how much space do I have to have, or fridge space do I need to have to store all of this meat so that I can just get it all at one time, and is it possible for me to keep everything at a proper temp? Didn't have enough fridge space in one particular place, so we had to pick up stuff at different parts of the week. Tuesday will be our sausage stuffing, and then Monday will be our brisket trim, as well as putting our sausage on cure. And lastly, the Friday before, not the Friday before, you know, the day we're gonna cook, but the Friday even before that, that was gonna be my brisket pickup day. Based off of, you know, where I was getting the meat from, the purveyor said this is the day. So, you know, when you're trying to do that, having communication with your purveyors is really, really important. And also asking them, is the product that I'm gonna get when I get it and I pick it up that day, is it gonna be frozen? Is it gonna be fresh? Is it gonna be thawed? Because depending on how it's getting to you, you may have to consider, you know, picking that stuff up even earlier. There's a lot of places where ribs come in frozen, and so, you know, you have to figure out whether or not you can, you know, use their stuff, or you have to get it from somewhere else. If they come in frozen, you have to figure out a place to thaw them out properly. And again, if something does go wrong, again, you have these 2 days that are off to really figure out how you can still get it done by Sunday. So as you guys can see, even though we're really planning for this one day, there's just a lot that we have to do. This structure might not be exactly what you do because everyone's cook is a little bit different. If you were to have to decide your Thursday and Friday, your off days would probably be, you know, Thursday, make sure you pick up everything you can, and Friday, if it needs to be something that needs to be cooked, you know, maybe cook it on Friday. If everything this needs to be, you know, cut up because you have a bunch of cold sides, then maybe that can be all done on a Friday or Thursday, and you can give yourself another day to take off. So again, this is just kind of like a way for you to have a blanket kind of schedule and figure out what you need to get done in a fashion that really allows you to be successful on this last day right here. I didn't do anything on Monday and Tuesday, and I moved everything up, and now my week is packed at the end. You're gonna be really, really tired, and at the end of it, you're gonna question whether or not you wanna do another pop-up. Hopefully this was helpful to you guys. If you have any other suggestions of when I can bring out this whiteboard, because this was kind of fun for me, let me know. So part 2 of Hard Knocks of KNOX AVE will be me kind of going through the schedule as best as possible with actual footage of me, you know, going through this entire week. And there are also a lot of smaller things that I do in between these days or during these days other than just this to help me prepare for the next pop-up or any other event that I'm trying to do. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. But if you guys do, please, please, please make sure you like this video, because I'm hoping this part 1 and this part 2 will help my channel to grow. I think this is hugely important, and so hopefully you guys find it as valuable as well. So please make sure you hit the like button, and also if you haven't already, make sure you press that bell notification so you know when part 2 will be coming out. And also, more importantly, make sure you share this video with your friends who are also in barbecue, who also plan on doing pop-ups like this. You can show them this video and save their lives. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.